was so I'd like to introduce Gary just by way of Gary encouraged us to read FDR. So I was looking at one of Franklin Roosevelt's this 1936 speech, and this whole speech is fabulous and moving and gets you up on your feet and ready to go. But he brings it in for a landing with a familiar quote. There is a mysterious cycle in human events. To some generations much is given, to other generations much is expected. This generation of Americans have a rendezvous with destiny. And now, what is that, Gary? And a rendezvous with destiny. Praise God.
I'd like to do a song we used to sing around the campfire. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles on the land, air, and the sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to bear the title of United States Marines. Everybody! Nobody! Well, you know, when Eric first asked me to be in this show about activism, we were on a cell phone and the connection was bad, and I thought he was talking about Activia. And so, you know, I made sure to watch all the commercials about Activia, and, you know, all those interviews that what's her name does with the different real people, and they talk about how it helped their digestion. I thought I can get some material out of that, because you know the paradigm really that we're allowed to talk about is really kind of narrow. On the one end of the spectrum, you've got all soldiers and people in uniform are heroes, and on the other end of the spectrum, you've got personal problems like how is your digestion working? Pretty much that's the limit, nothing else to it. So I was thinking about Activia recently when we went on this motorcycle trip. We took a motorcycle trip down to Julian, California, which is this old, beautiful Southern California mining town, like from the Old West, and it still looks like the Old West. And you ride into town and the old timers are sitting on the porch in front of the different businesses on the benches, and they're looking at you like you might just be trouble. And you might just be trouble if you're riding in on a motorcycle. And so we rode in on a motorcycle, and I was looking around, and suddenly it occurred to me that in an old western mining town in Southern California, I might want to eat some meat. And I hadn't eaten any meat in 14 months. And that's why I was thinking about Activia, because I was thinking, if I ate some meat after not eating any meat for 14 months, then maybe Activia would do the trick. And I started thinking about those super meat sandwiches where they got the different kind of meat piled on top of themselves in the same sandwich. And I was thinking about steak, and I was thinking about hamburger, and I was thinking about bacon and venison and duck and gopher and squirrel and rattlesnake and alligator, each layer separated by a hunting permit made out of reconstituted cow cud. And it was just, and I thought, would Activia help with that? I don't know the answer to that. But I know when you're riding a motorcycle, sometimes you think of yourself as being one of the Sons of Anarchy, that new TV show. I don't think of myself that way, being on my way to run some guns, but some people do. Some people think of themselves as a member of the Hells Angels, just burning up the highway and getting off the highway only to take a moment to beat up somebody at a Rolling Stones concert. I don't think of myself like that either, or myself, why not? And some people think of themselves as Marlon Brando. They think, you know, okay, I'm going to be the wild one. Back in the days when helmets weren't a law, and you could ride around with a cap, or like Lee Marvin with a different kind of cap. He was in that movie too. But what I do is I think of myself as Steve McQueen. I think of myself as Steve McQueen on the hillside, escaping from the Nazis. And there I am, I'm running away from the Nazis. And when I do that, I just hope that I don't round the curve and suddenly run into a barricade of barbed wire with a bunch of members of the Aryan Brotherhood and some pastor who wants to burn the Koran. That's what I worry about. But you can't avoid, when you ride a motorcycle and you're a guitar player, you can't avoid thinking about Dwayne Allman or Barry Oakley, each one from the Allman Brothers Band, each one killed on their motorcycle. About a year apart, Dwayne hit a flatbed truck and Barry hit the side of a bus, and each of them was thrown from their motorcycle, and their motorcycles flew after them, and because of the laws of physics, the motorcycles landed on top of them, and that's what killed them. And I don't want that to happen. So I was thinking about the laws of physics, and I was thinking about activism, and I was thinking, you know, we got to change those laws. We got to get rid of those laws. Those are bad laws. And if you want to get rid of a law, what do you got to do? You got to form a group. Citizens Against Physics. People Against Physics. The Coalition of Organizations Against Physics. Citizens Against Thermonuclear Dynamics. You form this group, and what do you got to do? You got to protest. You got to march. You got to march against physics. You got to march down to the science building at UCLA, and you got to start chanting. What do we want? No physics. When do we want it? Now. And then you got to get even more organized, and you got to start electing people. You got to elect them to the school boards and the city councils and the county commissions and the board of supervisors and the state legislatures and the rest of the government. You got to elect them to the Texas School Board, where they can make new textbooks that throw out physics entirely. No Galileo, no Einstein. Just bring back John Calvin, anybody who didn't believe in God in the Christian way that we define it on the Texas School Board. None of that. What do we need physics for? We don't, exactly. You got Bob Smith. Bob Smith goes to the airport. He's in Chicago, he wants to go to New York, he gets on the airplane, he goes to New York, it takes about 6 hours, he gets there. Okay, that's not physics, that's just, hey, the line in the security wasn't very long, and the plane ran on time, and they didn't fuck with his luggage, and he made it. And that's no physics there. You got Ann Smith. She wants to fly from New York to California, right? And it ends up taking her 23 days. Why does it take her 23 days? Because she had some heart medicine in her luggage, and they thought she was a terrorist, so they took her to Guantanamo. They beat the shit out of her. They were going to use her as a demonstration in a waterboarding class, but then she died. She never did make it to Los Angeles or San Francisco or wherever the hell she was going. The whole class is really disappointed. They wanted to learn about waterboarding, but, you know, if you drown, then you're innocent. If you live, you're a witch, because there's no physics whatsoever. So you elect the senators, and you elect the congressmen, and you even elect the president of the United States on an anti-physics platform. And then he goes to the UN, and he gets a coalition of the anti-physics willing from people all over the country. The people of China are told by their leaders to be against physics. All the dictators around the world tell their populations to be against physics. And pretty soon you got everybody against physics, but still, somebody hits the side of a bus with their motorcycle and they fly through the air, and then the motorcycle lands right on top of them. So then the pundits come on, and the pundits say, see, democracy doesn't work. You can have everybody in favor of something. You can elect everybody you want to elect, and it still doesn't work. And I guess that's the question for everybody. The question is, does democracy work? Now you might remember, after the war started, you might remember all those demonstrations all around the world. And you might have thought, wow, the people are against this war. And then you might have noticed that the war kept going. What you may not have noticed is that when they took the vote in the Congress about whether or not to support the war, 1/4 of the Senate and about 1/3 of the House of Representatives voted against the war. About 156 senators and congresspeople voted against the war. And people were all primed to have the anti-war movement in the streets, and the fact was the anti-war movement was already in the Congress. And what did we do? And I'm guilty of it too. What did we do? Did we help keep those 156 people in there? And did we decide to aid them and comfort them and add to their numbers? No, people just kept running around in the streets, going over to some building, not the UCLA Science Building, but maybe the Federal Building, and shouting at the building, whose streets are streets, but they weren't whose streets are streets, because we had to pay for the permits to do the marches. So it's whose streets, your streets, what do we want, the end of the war, when do we want it, as soon as you get around to it, because we haven't actually got the power to make you stop it yet. So this evening is about activism, and what I'm going to do is ask you to activate yourself. Yeah, you didn't think you were going to be asked to work a little bit. You thought you were just going to be entertained. We'll see a film about Kent State. We'll hear some great poetry. But we don't want to really do anything. We're an audience. Well, you got to look yourselves in the mirror, and you got to ask yourselves, what can I do? There's a lot that you can do. Not that it's going to solve it overnight. But there's some elections coming up. There's an anti-war candidate right here in the 30th Congressional District. His name is Richard Castaldo. He's in the Peace and Freedom Party, running against Henry Waxman, the pro-war candidate. If you're against the war, you can vote for Richard Castaldo. You don't even have to be registered Peace and Freedom in the general election to vote for him. But you could register Peace and Freedom. There's a governor's election coming up. Now there's a Green Party candidate running, there's a Peace and Freedom Party candidate running, and you got Jerry Brown and you got Meg Whitman. Meg Whitman, we all know what her platform is. She ran eBay. You know what her jobs program is? Her jobs program is okay, what are we going to pay the nurses? Who wants to work for $10,000 a year? Do I hear $9,000? Do I hear $8,000? Do I hear $7,000? Do I hear $5 an hour? Do I hear $4 an hour? That teacher, he'll work for $3 an hour. Sold, you got the job for $3 an hour. It's the eBay form of compensation as we lower the wages, eliminate the pensions. So you can pick and choose who to vote for there. Why, this evening, you could actually even write a check to one of the candidates. We'll take a check for Richard Castaldo, Cindy or me, if you want. You can make plans to support whatever candidate you want to support. You can make plans to go door to door for whatever candidate, whoever candidate you want to support. And then you can do it. I mean, really, the elections are only a few weeks away. We'll be glad to talk to you about it after the show if you want to help us out. Cindy's running in the 26th District for State Senate. That's what the activism is. That's what Kathy was thanking us for, actually, was getting out and going door to door, talking to people, trying to get them active, trying to get support, trying to increase the numbers. Now, I love the George Carlin bit, but I'm not that cynical yet. won't be. But like Galileo and Einstein, he's dead. Just look in the mirror. You can do it right now. You don't even have to have a mirror. Just pretend like you're looking in the mirror and you're just asking yourself, what am I doing? And what can I do? And what am I going to do during the next 6 weeks? And then after that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming this evening.
Eric,
And
I got some political stuff if you want to go.
all right, well,
If not,
yes.
it's okay.
No,